So we are going to start our next session. The theme of this session is terminologies and narratives. Over last 20 years or so, this word narrative has come into popular lexicon very significantly. If you look at the usage rate of this term narrative, in last 1990 onwards, the usage rate has, so the lexicon, this usage of this term has grown significantly. And there is a reason for that, because narrative does not mean truth. You can have a false narrative, you can have a semi-false narrative, and you can have a true narrative. And the permission, quote unquote, or the license to create whatever narrative you want, it got crafted once this ideology known as postmodernism came into existence. It was in 1960s or so that there was a French thinker, and then he propounded this notion of postmodernism. And essentially, in plain words, because it's very complicated mumbo-jumbo, he argued that there is no one single truth. Hindus say, ekam sat, ek satya hai. And it is stated in different ways. He said just exactly the opposite. There is no single truth. So if there are 10 people, you can have 10 different truths. And then license was taken using this idea that whatever I say is the truth. And that's how this narrative word came into picture. So if you can go to the next slide. This is exactly what this quotation from Harvard School of Design. Narratives neither recount things as they really happened, nor reveal true meaning of artifacts, cultures, and lived experiences. So if we try to argue with a person, okay, oh, I have fact and a video recording and something, it may not necessarily work at all. So this is one thing to understand. So I'll have just 2 more slides, and then we'll start the session. Next one. And in the context of social media or digital media, I cannot give long-winded 20-hour lectures or write elaborate papers. So I have to design very powerful terminologies which are packed with substance and meanings effectively. And in that context, terminologies are powerful ways of communicating one's story, especially in the age of digital media. I'll just give you one example. If someone says something, and they say, oh, you are a fascist. Just that single word. Now, historically, you can say, oh, fascism was born in Italy, and only those guys who were following the members of a particular party, fascist party, they were fascists. But now it's a much wider term, fascist. Power-packed word. Next one. I'll give you 2 examples how we can craft terminologies. So once you leave, you can think about it, and then, of course, then we'll have more discussion and presentations. Aurat. Now, if you look at its etymology from Persian or Arabic, this is what it means. Genitals, nudity, this is what it means. So Arabics called all our women as aurat. This is their way of looking at people. Now you see how you can use the same word with impact to counter them. So in the Hindu tradition, you have mahila, which means literally mahan, mahite iti mahila, that is mahan. But we can popularize this word auratification. How can you use this word strategically? The hijab makes a mahila into aurat. There's one single word. Now, the moment you state this in social media, people will ask lots of questions. What is hijab? What is mahila? What is aurat? Then you have a chance to answer their questions. You have to create avenues how you can create avenues through how you can respond to their questions rather than forcing your views on them. I'll give you one more example, and then we'll invite the speakers. We often refer Islam as dharma. You just call it as mazhab because that is their own term. How do you use it? I have given 2 examples. 80% of Indians participate, or Bharatiyas, my mistake, practice dharma in Bharat, and the rest are religionists and mazhabis. So the question will be, oh, you are differentiating between dharma and mazhab. अब आप बताइए धर्म का अभिप्राय क्या है, मजहब का. तो आपको एक अवसर मिलेगा उन्हीं के शब्दों को प्रयोग में ला करके उन्हीं के से प्रश्न निकालने का उत्तर मिलेगा. एक और एग्जाम्पल है इन हिंदी. सो यू कैन यूज दीज टर्म्स इन एनी लैंग्वेज, डजंट मैटर, दे आर लैंग्वेज न्यूट्रल. मैं धार्मिक हूँ और ओवैसी साहब, आई एम कॉलिंग हिम साहब, मजहबी हैं. Immediately there will be a question which will get provoked. What do you mean by this? So these are some examples. So just this is to set the stage. Now we have three eminent speakers today, and I will cordially invite them on the stage. I will request Manniya Shri Suresh Soni ji to kindly come. Our next speaker is Professor Anand Ranganathan. Our third speaker is Baba Satyanarayan Das, Dr. Satyanarayan Das. Dr. Sahab. I'll give you a brief introduction of all the three gentlemen who adorned the stage. I'll start with Manniya Suresh Soni ji. So Suresh Soni ji is very senior pracharak of Rastriya Swayamsevak Sangh. He has held in past several responsibilities in the RSS, including the position of Sah Sarkaryawah, that is Joint General Secretary. Born in Gujarat, Soni ji, after education, has dedicated his whole life as a full-time volunteer or pracharak in the Rastriya Swayamsevak Sangh to the cause of Bharat Mata. Shri Soni is a very deep thinker. I have had several interactions with him, and I learned every time I meet him. And he's a very humble person, and he always wears a very nice, gentle smile on his face. He's an expert orator on issues related to organization, philosophy, and social sciences. He has published several books, including Bharat में विज्ञान की उज्ज्वल परंपरा, गुरुत्व यानी इंदुत्व, and Bharat, अतीत, वर्तमान एवं भविष्य. Please welcome him. Our next speaker is Professor Anand Ranganathan. He teaches at Jawaharlal Nehru University. After completing his PhD in Natural Sciences from Cambridge, Professor Ranganathan returned to Bharat to join International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology in Delhi as a research scientist. In 2015, he joined the Special Center for Molecular Medicine at JNU and became a full professor in 2019. He writes very frequently, and you've seen him on TV almost every day on almost all the channels, so I don't have to talk too much about it. And he also writes frequently in Swaraj, DNA, First Post, News Laundry, and so on and so forth. He's a consulting editor of Swaraj, and he has written several books, 4 books, and all of them are novels. So welcome, Dr. Sahab. And our third speaker is Dr. Swami Satyanarayan Das ji. He is a graduate from IIT Delhi. He did his BTech from IIT Delhi in engineering, and after working for some years as a software engineer in United States, he returned to Bharat with a deep desire to study Sanskrit and original Vedic scriptures, study extensively Vedic scriptures, and then he founded the Jiva Institute of Vedic Studies to preserve and teach the ancient wisdom. He also has a law degree with himself and a PhD in Sanskrit from Agra Vishwavidyalaya. He has given several seminars and lectures across the world, United States, Europe, almost all parts of the world. And in 2012, he was awarded Sahitya Samman by President of Bharat. So welcome, Babaji. We will now request Manya Suresh Soni ji to talk to us, give his presentation. And the theme of his talk is the contemporary world and the Hindu view of education, because that sets the grounding for how narratives should be created. धन्यवाद.
हिंदी में एक कहावत है, गागर में सागर भरना. कंटेम्प्रेरी वर्ल्ड और हिंदू व्यू ऑफ एजुकेशन 10 मिनट्स में रखना. तो ट्राई करता हूँ. सामान्यतः सारे विश्व में माना जाता है कि एक शब्द आजकल चलता है कि डेवलप होना है. और डेवलप होना है तो शिक्षित होना है. और इसलिए सारी दुनिया के अंदर शिक्षा का प्रचार प्रसार पिछले 50 सालों में हम देखते हैं तो हर देश के अंदर 50 वर्ष पहले जितने इंस्टीट्यूशंस थे उससे कई गुना इंस्टीट्यूशंस हो गए. तो इंस्टीट्यूशन बढ़ गए, लिटरेसी बढ़ गई, लेकिन मनुष्य पिछड़ता जा रहा है. मनुष्य के एनवायरनमेंट का डेवलपमेंट हो रहा है, लेकिन एक मानव की जो संवेदना है, उसकी जो नैतिकता है, उसकी जो व्यापकता है, वो सीमित होती जा रही है. शिक्षा बढ़ रही है, लेकिन गन कल्चर भी बढ़ रहा है. शिक्षित लोग बढ़ रहे हैं, लेकिन परिवार टूट रहे हैं. शिक्षा बढ़ रही है, लेकिन आदमी फ्रस्ट्रेट हो रहा है. शिक्षा बढ़ रही है, लेकिन करप्शन बढ़ रहा है. मॉरल कैरेक्टर कम हो रहा है. और इसलिए सारी दुनिया में चला कि कहीं ना कहीं फंडामेंटल कुछ गड़बड़ है. यूनेस्को में काफ़ी विचार चला और एक कहा कि इसका रीज़न क्या है, तो उन्होंने कहा कि ये रीज़न जो है वो डिस्टॉर्टेड विजन ऑफ मैन एंड यूनिवर्स, ये इसका मूल कारण है. तो एक तरफ ये मनुष्य का कैसे विकास हो, दूसरी तरफ '96 के पहले यूनेस्को ने एक कमेटी बनाई, डेलर्स कमेटी नाम से, और उसका ऑब्जेक्ट रखा कि 21st सेंचुरी में ह्यूमैनिटी के सामने कौन कौन सी प्रॉब्लम्स आने वाली जिसको हमको एड्रेस करना पड़ेगा. तो उन्होंने कहा कुछ कॉन्ट्राडिक्शंस है, इन कॉन्ट्राडिक्शंस के बीच में कैसे जीना, इनको कैसे समन्वय करना, ये सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है. और इसलिए 7 कॉन्ट्राडिक्शंस उन्होंने आइडेंटिफाई किए. पहला, ग्लोबल वर्सेज लोकल. ग्लोबलाइज होता है तो लोकल समाप्त हो जाता है. यूनिवर्सल वर्सेज इंडिविजुअल. ट्रेडिशन वर्सेज मॉडर्निटी. शॉर्ट टर्म वर्सेज लॉन्ग टर्म कंसिडरेशंस. कंपटीशन वर्सेज कंसर्न फॉर इक्वलिटी. नॉलेज एक्सप्लोजन वर्सेज कैपेसिटी टू एसिमिलेट. एंड स्पिरिचुअल वर्सेज मटेरियलिज्म. और दुनिया भर के अंदर एक दूसरे के अपोजिट खड़े हैं. इनका सॉल्यूशन कैसे करना. और तीसरी, एआई और टेक्नोलॉजी बढ़ने से हो गया कि एक अच्छा मनुष्य बनाना है तो उसका माध्यम टूल्स हैं. थियोडोर रोजक ने किताब लिखी थी वेयर द वेस्टलैंड एंड्स. उसमें उसने कहा कि आज की सुपर इंडस्ट्रियल साइंटिफिक कल्चर एक आदमी बनाना चाहती है जो सोशियो टेक्नो पॉलिटिकल इकोनो एक्सपर्ट, मल्टी हेडेड इंजीनियर. और ऐसा आदमी बनाने के लिए जो अध्यापक है उसके हाथ में उसके शब्द प्रयोग हैं हाईली इलेक्ट्रोनोसाइज्ड, इंडिविजुअलाइज्ड, कंप्यूटराइज्ड, ऑडियो विजुअल मल्टी इंस्ट्रक्शनल कंसोल। इसको एक आप आदमी बना दीजिए। पर बोले भूल जाते हैं कि मनुष्य एक लिविंग एंटिटी है। एक लिविंग एंटिटी को आप जब मैकेनिकल प्रोसेस से कंप्लीट करना चाहते तो अंत में वो नाइटमेयर होता है। और इसलिए कहीं ना कहीं फंडामेंटल उसमें जाना पड़ेगा। इसके संदर्भ में भारत में कहा गया कि कंप्लीट डेवलपमेंट होना है तो मनुष्य और मनुष्य का परिवेश दोनों का साथ होना चाहिए। और इसलिए विवेकानंद जी ने डेफिनेशन में कहा कि एजुकेशन इज द मैनिफेस्टेशन ऑफ द परफेक्शन ऑलरेडी इन मैन। ये अगर करना है तो हमें मौलिक रूप से कुछ बातों के बारे में विचार करना पड़ेगा। पूरा वेस्टर्न थिंकिंग का अधिष्ठान ये भौतिकता है, खंडित दृष्टि है और अर्थ और काम यही इंस्पिरेशन है। जबकि भारतीय चिंतन में अध्यात्म या अधिष्ठान है, समग्र दृष्टि है और धर्म अर्थ काम मोक्ष चतुर्विध दृष्टि है। और इसलिए जो भारतीय शिक्षण सिस्टम के अंदर पहली चीज कही कि मनुष्य का पंचकोशात्मक विकास होना चाहिए। आजकल EQ, IQ, EQ इसकी चर्चा चलती है, पर हमारे यहाँ 5 Q कहे हैं। PQ, IQ, EQ, इसके साथ साथ SQ, अन्नमय, प्राणमय, मनोमय, विज्ञानमय और आनंदमय कोश। ये पंचकोशात्मक विकास होता है तो कंप्लीट विकास होता है। और दूसरी बात कही कि शिक्षण केवल स्कूल में नहीं होता है, वो संपूर्ण जीवन की प्रक्रिया है। इसलिए जन्म के पूर्व से शिक्षण प्रारंभ होता है। बच्चा गर्भ में रहता है तब से ही प्रक्रिया चालू होती है। मैं मुंबई गया था तो वहाँ स्नेहलता देशमुख, उनका एक प्रोजेक्ट था अभिमन्यु प्रोजेक्ट। उन्होंने कहा कि वाग्भट संहिता में कहा है कि बच्चा 6 महीने का होता है गर्भ में, तब से वो विचार और भावना ग्रहण करता है। ये सत्य है क्या? उस प्रोजेक्ट में उन्होंने एक नर्सिंग होम के अंदर 6 महीने के बालक जिनके गर्भ में हैं, एक 4D सोनोग्राफी मशीन लेकर कुछ प्रयोग किए। वो मुझे उन्होंने दिखाए। उन्होंने कंप्यूटर पे दिखाया कि वंशी की धुन में 2 राग हैं, यमन और कल्याण। उसमें रोना गाना नहीं होता है, आनंद होता है। वो धुन बज रही है और वो माँ सुन रही है और वो कंप्यूटर पे दिखाए वो बच्चा प्रसन्न हो रहा है। इन्होंने कहा कि जन्म लेने के बाद इसकी माँ ने कहा कि बच्चा जब कभी रोता था, जैसे ही ये धुन सुनाते थे चुप हो जाता था। एक दूसरा बच्चा, वो भी 6 महीने का है, लेकिन उसकी कोई प्रतिक्रिया नहीं, उसका हाथ जो है मुंह कर रहा है। उन्होंने कहा यह बच्चा इस समय 4.5 साल का है और बहुत अच्छा तबला बजाता है। एक तीसरा बच्चा, वो भी उसकी उंगलियां हिल रही हैं। उन्होंने कहा यह बच्चा 5 साल का है और बहुत अच्छा सितार बजाता है। तो शिक्षण केवल स्कूल में जाने के बाद चालू नहीं होता है। और इसलिए हमारे सिस्टम के अंदर घर से ही शिक्षण प्रारंभ होता है और गुरुकुलों के अंदर ये पंचकोशात्मक विकास। और जीवन में जब गृहस्थ धर्म में जाते हैं तो अपनी जो ड्यूटी है तो पंच यज्ञों के माध्यम से हर मनुष्य अपनी लाइफ के अंदर सोसाइटी के लिए, नेचर के लिए, बाकी सबके लिए काम करे और करते करते धीरे धीरे पूरा जो एग्जिस्टेंस है उसके साथ एकात्मता का बोध करे। जब ये कंप्लीट सिस्टम चलता है, उसमें से एक हिंदू सभ्यता का उदय हुआ, जिसमें ऋषि ये कहने में समर्थ हुए कि एतद् देश प्रसूतस्य सकाशाद अग्रजन्मना स्वम स्वम चरित्रम शिक्षेरन पृथिव्याम सर्व मानवा। मैं समझता हूँ कि भारतीय शिक्षण पद्धति का ये जो अजस्र प्रवाह है, इसको पुनर्जीवित करने की दिशा के अंदर हम सबको मिलकर प्रयत्न करना पड़ेगा। और सौभाग्य से जो परिवर्तन की दिशा चली है, तो अभी अभी भारत सरकार ने जो NEP लागू हुई है, इसमें 5+3+3+4 का जो फार्मूला है, उसमें फर्स्ट 5 के अंदर पहली दूसरी कक्षा और उसके पहले के 3, इसके अंदर ये प्रक्रिया चालू हुई है। और पहली बार सरकारी स्तर के ऊपर ये पंचकोशात्मक विकास इन्हीं शब्दों के रूप में इंक्लूड हुआ है। और आने वाले समय के अंदर ये भारतीय आध्यात्मिक चिंतन की जो धारा है, वह इतिहास में, सोशलॉजी में, अन्य विषयों के अंदर और आने वाले समय के अंदर विश्व के लिए एक वैकल्पिक स्वरूप देने की दिशा के अंदर और कार्य आगे करने की आवश्यकता है। मैं समझता हूँ कि यहाँ उपस्थित सभी लोग, हम सब मिलकर इस दिशा में प्रयत्न करेंगे तो निश्चित रूप से यह जो भारतीय शिक्षा मनुष्य को अपने दिव्यता से साक्षात्कार कराती है, उसमें समर्थता प्राप्त होगी। इसके लिए भगवान हम सबको सामर्थ्य और आशीर्वाद दे। इतने निवेदन के साथ अपनी बात पूरी करता हूँ।
Our next speaker for today is Professor Anand Ranganathan. The topic of his talk, or the theme of his talk, is creating terminologies for establishing truthful.
While we've been deliberating, I don't know whether you've heard that President Biden has declared a medical emergency in America because half the doctors are here. He doesn't know what to do. His lobotomy has been postponed. But honestly, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And before I start the thing, I have exactly 10 minutes. And one more reason why everyone belonging to the RSS is absolutely moral and ethically upright. I tried to bribe the timekeeper with Mysore Pak, but I could only manage 30 seconds out of him. So please, even now he's saying, no, I won't. Even Kannadiga Mysore Pak won't do. Tamilian Mysore Pak won't do. I don't know what to do. This is... So in the 10 minutes that I have, I thought I'll just lay out the groundwork essentially for deliberation and say things that might come across as new, but because we're talking of history, at least the narrative aspect all of you would have heard before. But that's one thing that has typified our narrative over the last 10 years, that we've heard, as Vikram also said during his session, we've heard almost everything before. The time is, however, of action. Let me begin by saying that nations weaken not because of their past, but rather by how they are taught it. And for 70, 75 years, all we've been taught is to forget historical injustices that are based on narratives. From Babarpur to Bakhtiarpur, from Allahabad to Aurangabad, from Somnath to Kashi Vishwanath. It's not just that we've been asked to forget historical injustices, is that we've been asked to remember the humiliation they've been exposed to us, as though to lionize the debasement and say, look, this is what we did to you Hindus, look at it. What other reason can there be of the presence of Gyan Vyapi Mosque, where you can clearly see the half-destroyed Kashi Vishwanath, and on top a mosque where Vishnu Jain, who is possibly in the audience, and his father are fighting for the cause to reclaim the place where millions of people have been washing their dirty feet. This is the direct result of narratives. Now, I want to come to the actions, because that is where I think this discussion would be fruitful. Repeating what all of you've heard before, and I've said before, is of little consequence now. Creating terminologies, I think that's very important. As Nachiketa ji also said, he mentioned but a few. I would add to that, while agreeing to it substantially, I would add to that I think much more than creating a terminology that comes later, what precedes it is to actually create, not just create a narrative, but to tell the truth. That's it. Tell the truth. Now, how about that as a new terminology? Because honestly, truth has been hidden from us. And it's been visible to us, and yet in the narrative, we see something completely different. Gyan Vyapi is visible. But in the narrative, it is not typifying the destruction of Hinduism and Hindus itself. It doesn't. It is something as a very noble cause, Gyan Vyapi Masjid, where journalists say that it is all very well for Narendra Modi to have visited Kashi, but he should also have visited the Gyan Vyapi Mosque, without knowing anything about it. So before we come up with terminologies, we have to just table the truth. And here is the thing which is a primer, at least, that works very well for me, which is that I am a firm believer in there is only one truth. Yes, of course, there are many ways to it, but I don't believe in what Rashomon, the great film, typified, that there are versions of truth. I don't believe that. I believe that science tells you and gives you one truth. And of course, the problem, as I always caution others, is, and that has happened in the last 70, 80 years, is that we mix politics with science. And I say, please don't mix politics with science, because all then you would end up with is political science. And that's a big problem. That's an entirely different domain. But science tells you the truth. Science tells you that the B form of DNA is double helical. There are no versions of this. There is no narrative. Once you table the truth, there are no narrations of it. There is one truth, and that's it. You either say it or you don't. And when you say it, you either believe it or you don't. There are no false narratives and true narratives. So I think, as I've said this before, there ought to be more history in science. We need to know a lot of what our great Indian scientists did, but more importantly, there ought to be more science in history. Every historical sentence or that we talk about history should be hyperlinked with a proof. And people like Vikram, so many others, have started to doing that. And I'll tell you why it's important. Because you look at the so-called quote-unquote narratives in science, and there were a few, I do admit, because they lent themselves very well to popular discourse, and hence the birth of narratives. Otherwise, in science, you don't find narratives. There are no narratives in infectious diseases, no narratives in cardiology. But there are narratives in science because those scientific topics have captured popular imagination, and non-scientists have jumped into it. They've written articles on it, and they have birthed this narrative of these, essentially what were scientific questions. Let me give you a few examples, but even then, what has prevailed ultimately is the truth, and that is what is the lesson that at least I take from it. Let me give you a few examples. For example, many people believe that the genesis of life, this big question that needs to be answered, was the chicken and egg question. What came first, DNA or proteins? Because proteins come from DNA and DNA comes from protein. Until the advent of ribozymes came along, that people said, look, RNAs could be folded into a shape that could actually do catalysis. So RNAs could act as catalysts. So here was the essential dogma of life, where you have DNA, RNA to protein, and something else that got inserted in it, that you have a new whole projection of how life originated, that it was the RNA world. Scientists accepted it. People who are not from the field of science have also accepted it. That is the power of truth, because reproducibly you can show that RNA can be folded into shapes that do catalysis like proteins. That's the absolute truth. There are no versions of truth in this case. The same goes with theory of evolution. Now, when it was proposed by Darwin, yes, there was huge objection, principally from the church and many other people. They called it a theory. But now it has been shown to be an axiom. And subsequent experiments have proven that. Stanley Miller's experiment in 1953, the genesis of how we all came about. Then you have Jacques Shostak's protocell. Then you have stemma sexual PCR. And finally, you have genome sequencing that tells you that evolution is an axiom. It is true that we have all evolved from the basic elements of life. You have the Big Bang theory. Now, when it was proposed, ironically, by Hoyle, who had proposed the steady-state theory, there were conflicting theories, but over the last 50, 60, 70 years, people have more or less agreed that this Big Bang theory is a reality. So there are no narratives to it. And finally, the Aryan invasion theory. And this is the most political aspect of it. People did not believe, or rather they believed that in Aryan invasion theory, and now population genetics has proven that this is all complete bunkum. And slowly, even though now the narrative is so strong, the Marxist narrative that Aryans did invade and brought us everything, we've seen the fact, yes, thank you very much, I have a minute left. We've seen the fact from the population genetics and the digging at Rakhi that, we had a way of life that has continued till now, started 4,000 years ago, did not have any steppe ancestries. So these are narratives. On the other hand, if you look at the narratives in history, I'm afraid they are completely populated with false narratives, propaganda. For example, I didn't know till 2 years ago that Ashoka was a Buddhist 4 to 8 years before he undertook the Kalinga War. We've been taught that after he killed millions and he saw the devastation of Kalinga War, he was a Hindu and he converted to Buddhism. That is a false narrative because it doesn't tell the truth. There are so many, I don't need to go into Tipu Sultan. We still keep our children's names as Tipu. Tipu in his own manifesto said, the only duty of a Muslim is the complete annihilation of the kafir, of the infidel. We have Aurangzeb who killed 4.6 million Hindus, destroyed so many temples. We had roads named after Aurangzeb. We have Saint Francis who said so many horrible things about Hindus and temples, and we have our Prime Minister venerating him. Same with putting a dargah on the Chishti of Chishti who said that I want to break Hindu idols and temples. We have Nehru as the paragon of freedom of speech and expression. The guy banned 50 books, jailed editors. We have people saying Gandhi believed in Western medicine when he denied his wife penicillin that could have saved her, and she died directly as a result of that. We have so many narratives that are historical and so many that are contemporary. For example, Modi is an anti-Muslim. The time is up, so 30 seconds. Modi is anti-Muslim. No other prime minister, present or past, has done as much for Muslims as Narendra Modi has. People don't admit it. Finally, 2 examples. How many of you, if I can do a show of hands, that might take 30 extra seconds. The chair is more important than the timekeeper, so if I can, in the hierarchy. So can I take a minute? So kind. And I'll, 2 kilos of Mysore Pak to Nachiketa ji on that. Thank you. How many of you know Devipad Chaudhary? Not a single hand has gone up. Jagatpati Kumar? No. Anna Sahib Deshpande? 1 hand. Ramakant Keshav? No. Vasant Rao Oak? Okay. 10 hands have gone up. Narayan Singh? Chandrakant Bhardwaj? 2 hands have gone up. Your hand going up doesn't count because you know the history. Babu Rao Begade? Lala Hansraj? Yes, many hands have gone up. Balaji Raipurkar? 1 hand has gone up. So about 200 people. Suffice it to say that 99% of the people don't know most of these names. Now, this is a narrative that RSS people, leaders, did not take part in the freedom struggle. All these 10, 12 are just a fraction of RSS leaders that 99% of the people in this organization, in this room, do not know. They fought and died for Indian freedom. This is the power of false narrative. When the people who should be knowing this, and I'm not castigating this, I did not know these names until Ratanji, a very good friend, wrote a book for which I was lucky enough to have sent a quote, and I read that book. Just a fraction. We don't know of these names. Why are we blaming people who are from the Congress or the leftists? Our history has been so distorted that we have started to believe that RSS did not take part in the freedom struggle because we ourselves don't know a fraction of these names. There are hundreds of these. I urge you to read the book by Ratan Shardaji on RSS and freedom struggle. It is eye-opening. This is the power. The next, I would want to very quickly, because now you've given me 1 minute, you'll give me 1 minute more. The power of false narrative and guilt tripping. How many of you know Khamung Sek? Okay, not a single hand has gone up. How many of you know of the Azad Maidan riots for the Rohingya rights that happened in Mumbai? Okay, almost 70% of you know. The Azad Maidan riots happened because Muslims in India marched in their tens of thousands, rioted, vandalized in Azad Maidan, broke the Amar Jawan Jyoti because they demanded refugee status in India for Rohingya Muslims. Khamung Sek was the place where Rohingyas murdered, raped, pillaged, massacred hundreds of Hindus in Burma. Many of the refugees that came as a result of the browbeating of Azad Maidan riots, 40,000 of them are in India right now. Many of them might have perpetrated the Khamung Sek massacre. But we Hindus ourselves don't know the massacre that killed hundreds of Hindus by Rohingyas. And Rohingyas are the refugees in our country. This is the power of narrative. But had we known the truth, things would have been very different. And I end finally with the best terminology and the busting of false narrative being given by the Honorable Thai Prime Minister when today he said that the only way peace can be brought about in the world is to look at Hinduism and to follow the principles of Hinduism. And I know what is going to happen. He is going to be condemned as Islamophobic because they will say, what about religion of peace? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we go to the next speaker, Dr. Satyanarayan Dasa ji, just wanted to add a comment that this discussion is not about Rona Dhona and, just complaining, as you rightly said. But we have to find out ways on how do we overcome these hurdles. This is a conference focused on education, educational systems. Anand made a very good point that the fundamental thing we have to do different in context of shifting the narrative is to tell the truth. In social sciences streams, all social sciences streams, languages, history, political science, philosophy, and so on and so forth, or whatever, they are right now teaching only Western approaches at understanding and interpreting texts. As long as those interpretation methods are taught, as long as those things are taught, this thing is not going to change that easily. The Hindu tradition very strongly emphasizes that whenever you make a statement, whether about this world or that world, you have to substantiate it with a praman. This is what he was talking about, okay? Anything you say, it has to be substantiated by a praman. There are formal praman, siddhant related courses. We have introduced that in our Hindu studies department, programs also. But it's extremely important that as and when some of our educationist friends, when they go back to universities, they should seriously contemplate on introducing courses like Praman Siddhant into every single humanity-related field, whether it's political science and whatever, so that Hindus and students from Bharat have opportunities to interpret texts in the light of Praman, not just these Western approaches which are based on ideologies. So that is something I wanted to add to what he is saying. Our next speaker is Dr. And Swami Satyanarayan Dasa. The theme of his presentation is distinguishing Sanskrit original terms from their translations.
Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Utapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitanscha. So, we have been talking about narratives, and a narrative is made through language. And language is a very powerful tool to change the mindset of human beings. The distinguishing quality of human beings is that they have ability to speak, bhasha, which means that I can convey my thoughts, my ideas through language to you. It's quite a mystical thing if you think of it, and a lot of research and our acharyas have written. There is a very great book called Vakyapadiyam, if somebody is interested, by King Bhartrihari, where he talks about what is Shabda. In fact, he talks about Shabda Brahmavad, that how everything comes from Shabda. So, by twisting the meaning of the words, you can change the whole narrative. And I will speak a little bit about on that. Who is controlling the? Okay. Yeah, next. So therefore, role of language, because it is through language we know history, as we spoke about, and history is written by those who are the rulers. Those who are victorious, they write the history. Even the word history is an improper word. The word which we use is called itihasa. And you translate it into history, and the whole thing changes. Because itihasa is not history. Itihasa is itiha-asa, which means that something happened. Iti means like this, ha means happened. And asa means that it is actually explained to educate you. The purpose of history is not just to tell you some facts that 1550 this happened, 1600 this happened, first war of Panipat, second war of Panipat, etc. But to actually teach you what we can learn from it. And this is how narratives can twist things. So it can influence our whole culture, how we say it, socially, emotionally, spiritually. And then things of values they are passed down the generations. So next, please. So modification in language can change the narrative of a society. And by preserving language, the traditions and customs are preserved. So it is very important to actually understand this fact, because now we know that we have been fed wrong narratives. This is, at least we have become aware of it, we have been awakened to it. Previously we did not know. When I was in school, I did not know all these things. It is now that I realize that how so many false things were taught to us. So now we have to wake up, but we have to do something. And one of the very important thing is that actually I will not go through the slides because time is so limited. And we have a tradition of sutra and then bhasyas and the sutras. So I'll speak in very simple things. For example, we have samskaras. And our Soni ji, he spoke about dharma, artha, kama and moksha. But you translate artha into economy, translate dharma into religion, and kama, we don't even know how you translate it. Most people don't know what kama really means. Most people think kama means maybe sex. No, it does not mean that. So all these things are actually related to the ultimate goal of life. Artha is not just economy. As soon as you make it economy, then it becomes what we know now. So dharmasya hi apurgasya nartho artha kalpate. नार्थस्य धर्मे कांतस्य कामो लाभा ही स्मृते कामस्य न इंद्रिय प्रीति यावत जीवे यावत लाभो जीवेत यावता जीवस्य तत्व जिज्ञासा नार्थोयस्य कर्म भी. So very beautifully in Srimad Bhagavatam it is described what is the purpose of dharma, what is the purpose of artha, what is the purpose of kama, and then ultimately the very purpose of life. And this is how our whole Indian Bharatiya culture was designed by our sages, so that you could live peacefully, happily in this life and afterlife. So one of the very beautiful definition of dharma is given by the Bhasyakara of Vaisheshik Sutra. Yato abhyudhya nishreyasa tata dharma, sadharma. That dharma is that by which you get abhyudaya and nishreyasa, by which you get prosperity in this life and moksha after this life. And this is actually the essence of our Bharatiya Sanskriti. This is the sutra. Everything was designed for that. Even this dance, art, music, whatever now we think that Sanskriti means just dancing. No, everything was related with the ultimate goal of life, which was Nishreyasa. But as you translate these words into English, if you translate into Indian languages, they are coming from Sanskrit only. So its original meaning is contained, retained. But you translate it into European languages, the whole meaning is lost. So artha does not mean economy. Artha is actually dharma, artha, tato dhanam. The basic principle, even Krishna has given this in Bhagavad Gita, that actually artha comes from dharma. But dharma is not meant for artha, that is the beauty. Dharmasya hi apvargasya. Dharma is meant for apvarga, nishreyasa, moksha. But no one will think like this once you translate the word artha into the word economy or money or wealth. So that is the beauty of Indian Bharatiya Sanskriti, that we had both. Otherwise, why these people came attacking here? Why Bharat was called Soni ki chidiya, the golden bird? Because we had the material prosperity and we had something which no one else had. We had what they had, more than that, plus we had something which was not available anywhere. And that's why what Dr. Ranganathan ji said, that Prime Minister of Thailand said that without Hinduism there cannot be peace, because nobody knows the peace formula. Sri Krishna has given the peace formula in Bhagavad Gita, that gyatva mam shantim richati, that if you know me, then you can attain peace. Because unless you know the ultimate thing, this whole Vishwa is called universe, even in English, and uni means one. So unless we consider this, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, there cannot be peace. But now this is how the narrative is misused. Now you hear this word so many times, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and this is to make the Hindus damn fool. Yes, Hindus are very tolerant. Hindus are very peaceful. So then I can plunder you and you tolerate it. No, Hindus are not like that. Krishna was not tolerant like that. He had conch also in his hand, but he also had the Sudarshan Chakra. We are tolerant if you are a dharmic person. But if you are a dharmic person, then that's why Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. And we Hindus have forgotten that. Why India came under the foreign rule? Because with adharmic people, we are trying to apply dharma. This was the stupidity of our kings. And we are still continuing this stupidity. With adharmic people, we cannot apply dharma. In Mahabharata, Sri Krishna, by plan, he got killed Bhishma, Dronacharya, Karna, Duryodhana, everybody by adharma. And this is only to put this sense in our head, who have DNA in our genes, that you should know that dharma has its place, but supporting an adharmic person is also adharma. Killing an adharmic person is not adharma. This is what Krishna taught us. And if we do not know this, and we forget this whole idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and Ekam Sadvipra Bahudha Vadanti, they don't understand this. This is our inside story. This we can talk with our own people, but with them, don't think like that. You have to know their mindset. This narrative is being made, there is a big plan behind it, so much money is being spent. Recently, I was talking with a professor from a very famous university in America, and because of this Israel war, and I said, look, so much of atrocities were done on Hindus. You know what he said? And he was arguing with me. He says, no, there is nothing like this. Hindus became Muslim because of the Sufis. He was serious. He was quoting. He said, I will contact another professor and give you the proof. And then I sent some videos to him. Then what he says is that, but actually Hindus also did so many atrocities to the Sudras. You see what is the comparison? So this is the narrative which has been fed. He is a professor in the Department of Religion. But this is what they believe. Why do they believe it? Because they have been fed like that. He's not doing it because he has something against Hinduism. And then when I was speaking, the next thing he said, oh, this is Hindu fundamentalism. So these are the words, Hindutva. So one thing which he said about Pramana Shastra, actually recently now my classes I'm teaching Nyaya Sutras of Gautama Rishi, I tell you we should all read. Somebody says Hindutva, you immediately ask him question, what do you mean by Hindutva? He won't be able to answer you. Time up, thank you. So, Twa pratyay is applied when something has a quality, like cow, cowness, go, gotva, manushya, manushyatva, Hindu, hindutva. If I'm a Hindu, I have to have Hindutva or not? But then Hindutva is now being used as if I am some biased person, I am atrocious, in a negative sense. Hindu rightist, what is Hindu fundamentalism? So we should learn, this is the poison pill I wanted to say, that we should learn to have these poison pills. That first of all start using Sanskrit terms. I have written a book along with Rajiv Malhotra, probably you know, Sanskrit non-translatables. And we should learn that Atma, you use the word Atma translated to soul, the meaning is lost. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses maybe at least 10 times the word Atma in different meaning. Atmaivi Atmano Bandhu, Atmaya Rupura Atmana, Atma Atmanastasva, Bandhu Atma Atmanastasya, Yenaiva Atmana Atmana Jita, Anatmanastu Satrutva, Vartaya Atmaiva Satruvat. In 3 slokas, 12 times he uses the word Atma, but in different meanings. But you translate it into English, there is no way that the meaning is captured. So I will not take more time, but please stick to the Sanskrit words, learn Sanskrit, encourage your children to learn Sanskrit. It is very important, and fight for Hindutva.
10-15 minutes about 12 minutes for Q&A. Before we go into Q&A, I just wanted to illustrate one example what Swamiji mentioned. Terms. So what do we call peace in Hindi or Sanskrit? Shanti. Just 30 seconds, see the difference. Peace, if you do etymology of that, it comes from Latin pax. And essentially it implies a pact. You call it Pax Americana, Pax Romana, things like that. There are 2 sides which are in conflict and somehow they come to an agreement and then they have a pact. That is peace. And it actually, this pax comes from Sanskrit cognate paksha. तो 2 पक्ष हैं, 2 पक्षों के बीच में युद्ध हो रहा है या मतभेद है, then they come to a pact. Shanti. See, so this, I mean, you should understand. I mean, even simple words have very significant connotations. Shanti relates to this Sham Dhatu. You have some fire burning, you have fuel, you have oxygen, things are burning. When the conditions for that burning evaporate, they go away, everything settles down, shamit ho jata hai, and then there is tranquility, shanti, shanti, shanti. So fundamentally different things. But you stick to peace, you will get peace. And you will get pacts between Pakistan and Bharat. Or if you want shanti, then you have to evaporate the conditions which create the fire. That is there. So that is there. So we have some time for question and answers. We have the microphones. And I have been told very strongly by several people earlier that आप लोग सब senior लोगों को ही microphone देते हैं. So this time we'll also please try to give it to young people, also energetic people. Okay, and people who are in the back also. Yeah.
I'm Rachit Agrawal from Bangalore, Bharat.
Yes.
While I'm picking instances from Professor Ranganathan's talk, my question is to entire panelists. So the measures to correct our false narratives, my takeaway is scientific proofs and awareness. While the former is more time consuming, the second one is something that can be done quicker. So I wanted to understand what could be a faster way to increase the awareness. As an individual level, my takeaway is okay, Google.
Please keep it brief because we want to have as many questions as possible.
Yeah, so I wanted to understand faster way to improve our awareness as an individual and as a community level.
Thank you. That's a very important question. The fastest way I've always believed is the person at the very top answers it unequivocally. And that is something that is seriously lacking in our country. We believe that the change comes from bottom. I firmly believe that the change comes from the top. Let me give you a few examples. In fact, I illustrated this, I would say very impressively, if I can praise myself, about the RSS's role in the freedom struggle. Now, when was the last time you heard Dr. Mohan Bhagwat or anyone who is the top post position of RSS actually saying what I said, illustrated it? It's never happened. I can't remember any major RSS top leader actually saying exactly this. And what happens? Nobody knows about this. If he were to name, I named 12 RSS leaders who got shot, who were hung. And in fact, I forgot some of the very prominent ones in my hurry. Thank you very much for the timekeeper. Hemu Kulkarni, who got hanged. All top RSS leaders. They took part in the freedom struggle. RSS people themselves do not tell others this. So the change comes from the very top. And let me end by quoting someone very prominent. Quote, handed over the chadar which would be offered on the oors of Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti at the Ajmer Sharif Dargah. This is our Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let me quote someone else. Quote, I will raise these Anasghar Hindu temples to the ground. I have come to India to fight the holy war against infidels. This was Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti. Let me give you another example when I talk about change should come from the top. Quote, Narendra Modi, again, best wishes to my sisters and brothers of Goa on the day of the feast of Saint Francis Xavier. May this occasion further the spirit of harmony and brotherhood in our society, unquote. Let me now do another quote. Quote, Hindu gods and their idols are as dirty as they are ugly and horrible to look at. Witnessing the destruction of temples and idols gives me so much joy, unquote. Saint Francis Xavier. I hope I have illustrated my answer.
आपने बताया किस तरह से एजुकेशन सिस्टम के लिए हमारे को काम करना होगा हिंदू एजुकेशन सिस्टम के लिए बट राइट नाउ देयर इज नो मैकेनिज्म देयर इज नो इकोसिस्टम to get the right education. There's a personal starving at my end and the entire generations are starving. I think we'll be the last probably couple of generations who are going to witness this need. So what is the solution for that Hindu education system? We cannot wait for another 20 years. My question is, Hindu education system is not existing. How long is it going to take?
एक बार गुरुजी को किसी ने पूछा कि हिंदू राष्ट्र कब तक बनेगा, तो उन्होंने कहा कि एक बार जॉनसन एक होटल में गया और वो चांदनी रात थी, तो उन्होंने फिश बुलाई। दूसरे साथी ने पूछा कि इस टेबल से चांद तक जाने के लिए कितनी मछलियाँ लगेंगी, तो जॉनसन ने उत्तर दिया कि यहाँ से वहाँ तक लंबी एक हो तो एक पर्याप्त है। टाइम एकदम नहीं कह सकते, लेकिन मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि अभी जो रास्ता पकड़ा है तो अगले 10 इयर्स के अंदर एक आपको पॉजिटिव चेंज दिखाई देगा। बिकॉज ये जो टोटल चेंज है, जो मॉर्निंग सेशन में चर्चा चला था ना हिस्ट्री बुक्स का, अबाउट 15 इयर्स होमवर्क करके फ्रॉम 6th क्लास टू 10th क्लास हिस्ट्री की बुक्स तैयार हुई, और ये न्यू बुक्स के अंदर पूरा अपना 5000 इयर्स की जो हिस्ट्री है और प्रोपोर्शनेटली सभी डायनास्टियाँ उन सबको इंक्लूड हुआ, और पब्लिक के द्वारा भी उसको रेस्पॉन्स मिला है, गवर्नमेंट ने उसको एक्सेप्ट किया। अभी एनसीईआरटी के अंदर भी उसका चेंज कर रहे हैं। यूजीसी की जितनी नेट परीक्षा हैं, उसके जितने कोर्सेस हैं, उन कोर्सेस के अंदर भी इंडियन पर्सपेक्टिव से और उनका पुनर्निर्धारण, वो भी एक प्रक्रिया चल रही है। और मॉर्निंग में जो आया था कि जो हमारी लेगेसी है नॉलेज की, जितनी मेन स्क्रिप्ट से है, पाली, प्राकृत, संस्कृत, उन सब के भी और ट्रांसलेशंस और अवेलेबिलिटी, उस नाते भी वर्क स्टार्ट हुआ है। तो मुझे लगता है कि नेक्स्ट 10 इयर्स के अंदर आप कुछ पॉजिटिव ये देखेंगे, और आप सबका भी सहयोग अपेक्षित है इसमें।
मैं बस एक चीज़ इस पे ऐड करना चाहूँगा कि 10 साल और वेट करने में एक और जनरेशन जेएनयू चली जाएगी।
नहीं चलिए,
ये एक बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है, क्योंकि हम अगर हिंदूज़ और हिंदू सिविलाइजेशन की ट्रूथ बताना एक बात है, जो कम्युनिज्म को यूलोजाइज करते हैं, जो शे गुवारा और माओ को भगवान बना के रखा हुआ है, जो सीपीआई कम्युनिस्ट अपने आप को कहते हैं वी आर प्रो दलित, व्हेन इट इज़ दे हु मैसेकर्ड मारी झापी मैसेकर्ड 10,000 दलित्स, व्हेन दे से वी आर प्रो इंडिया, व्हेन दे डिमोटेड अच्युतानंदन फॉर सेटिंग अप ब्लड कैंप्स इन द वेक ऑफ 1962 वॉर, when they say we are pro-democracy, when it is the only party in the world that set a resolution hailing the Tiananmen massacre. These are the things that should not take 10 years. They should take 10 days for college and university students to know the truth.
Listen, Mr. Chairman, Mr. I'm Professor Shri Prakash from Delhi University. The whole country is not JNU. They are hardly teaching 8,000 students. We at Delhi University have been teaching more than 6 lakh students in a year. One thing. Second thing, quoting Prime Minister in a way, he is the Prime Minister of the country, and you are quoting in a way that he is a religious leader. Please distinguish all these things while quoting such a person in such a seminar or conferences. Thank you so much.
Actually, one second.
That is why I say I'm always called only once to any place. I'm very happy with that.
Anand, one second. One second. I just wanted to, as a chairperson, थोड़ा मेरी भी सुन लीजिए. The theme of this session was narratives and terminologies. First request is, please stick to this theme. A lot of us have a lot of anguishes. A lot of us want changes to happen very fast. Some of the expectations may not be as fast as we are expecting. Some of them may be satisfied. There's a lot of spectrum. 2 points have been made. Anand has made a point. Soni ji has also made a point. Now, repeating the same story again and again, it does not create a new narrative. That's all I'm saying. What I'm saying is, please stick to narratives and terminologies. The problem of narratives is a very serious thing. Think about what things can be done, how can we as individuals contribute, and how do we go forward from there in terms of doing some follow-up things, because otherwise we'll just end up in this cyclic thing and we'll not end up anywhere. Yeah, please.
My question is for Anand Ranganathan. Anand, recently one book called Lords of Deccan is being praised to the skies. And unfortunately, it is his book on history which has carried forward the worst traditions of leftist historiography, primarily painting Hindus, Hindu traditions and Hindu kings in the worst possible manner. But what is really shocking is this book has got the Sahitya Akademi Award recently.
Sir, please complete your question quickly.
Yeah, I'm doing that. And the worst thing is, like you say, there is still worse. The committee that selected this Sahitya Akademi Award was headed by a person who is a very senior functionary in the current government and is considered as a right-wing ideologue. So if something like this continues, then when will the narrative change?
As the saying goes from a film, government bhale hamari ho, system to unka hai. No, but the question is, in education, I think it is very important to tell the truth. You cannot stop people from telling the lies. Please remember that. You will always have hundreds of authors peddling hundreds of books that peddle thousands of lies. You can't stop it. You absolutely can't. Communists are adept at that. They will keep on peddling it. The question is, are you adept at putting the truth on the table? How there might be hundreds of books that tell all sorts of lies about Hindu civilization, about Hindu kings, so many. I counted a few, narrated a few examples. But how many books are there that tell the truth about our civilization compared to that? Just put it on the table, let people decide.
Yeah.
Are we pushing for teaching Sanskrit in IIM and IITs?
I'll be very pleased if that is done. Because don't think that management principles are known only to the Western people. You can read Sanskrit works, you can read Arthashastra of Chanakya, Niti Shastra of Vidura, and Shukra Niti. There are no better management principles anywhere in the world. They do so much research, they come out with some principles, you can find that in a small sutra in our books. So I will say yes, we should study Sanskrit, we should teach it at all levels.
Ma'am, before you ask a question, I want the usher to also give microphones to people in the front. Not only, hai na? So,
Namaste.
Can one microphone come in the front?
I heard you phrasing a lot of heroes with backgrounds in Sanatana Dharma, the freedom fighters in RSS, but also Prime Minister Modi, who I feel have all a deep background in Sanatana Dharma. But there's one thing where you phrased, you said that it was the truth, where I am a little confused. That is there, you said, like, for example, the chicken-egg question can be solved by, and you phrased some terms like proteins and some other chemical terms. But with a background in Sanatana Dharma, I always have understood that the truth behind the chicken and egg question can be, the answer to this is consciousness, that consciousness is the...
Excuse me, ma'am, we need a question from you.
My question is,
Yes.
how, if you phrase Sanatana Dharma as the truth of many questions in the world, how can then the chicken and egg question be answered by science?
Thank you for asking that. I think what we were talking about were the historical truths and false narratives. What you've asked is more in the domain of philosophy. And of course, I never claimed that science has all the answers. But what I felt was in this domain, in exposing false narratives and kind of denying people to carry away a subject into through a mechanism of false narratives can be stopped if we stick to the truth that is told by science. So absolutely, I did not mean to digress into the domain which many people believe that science still cannot explain. And let me exemplify that with, I had the honor and the pleasure of meeting Amma and getting her darshan yesterday. And I asked her, what is the purpose of life? And what is the answer? And she said something so profound, it has still shaken me. She said, 100 wells possess the sun, but they all have reflection of the sun. There is only one sun, there isn't 100 suns. So stop searching for the one answer. At best, what you will get is a reflection of that answer. So I think likewise, I believe science is a tool, but for the topic at hand, it is, to me, the most powerful tool that must be used. Thank you.
Swami,
Okay, I need...
Swamiji, what
After
is
this,
the...
please don't give the microphone to anyone. You please bring the mic here. Because I should...
What is the strategy for securing the future of Sanskrit? How do we talk about future ideas in Sanskrit?
So, future of any knowledge system, whether it is Sanskrit or even science, is in studying it and utilizing it in our life. If we don't study it, if we don't use it, then as in the West, big scholar Sheldon Pollock, you may have heard his name, who declared boldly that Sanskrit is dead. And in fact, we had a seminar on that also. So then people will believe, and our own people think like this, that what, are Sanskrit padh ke kya hoga? I was not a Sanskrit student. As you know, I was in IIT. I never heard these names, Gautam, Kanad, Patanjali. Never heard these names. But when I read them, I think we are the foolest person on this planet that we have such wealth of knowledge and we just deny it. So all the principles like management, he said, they're available. And in fact, these management principles from the West, they don't apply to Indian mind. Indian mind is unique. God has created it separately. You all know that.
Okay. Aap puchiye, please.
Swamiji, I have a question. We have a strong tradition of storytelling, and narrative is nothing but narrating stories and creating perception through it. Many people here, may not have read actually Valmiki Ramayana in origin, the original text, Sanskrit text. Somebody might have read, Ramcharitmanas or other versions. But still we know Ramayana and we carried the values of Ram and Ramayana. After having such a powerful tradition, where did we lose that art of narrative building? And how Hindu art of narrative building can be enriched?
So, as Dr. Ranganathan was answering, that it comes from the top. In Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, Yad yad acharti shrestha tattadevitra jana sayat pramanam kurte lokastadanu vartate. So the problem always starts from the top.
Thank you.
Just like we have this body, the problem starts here. The hands, legs, etc., they are just tools. If my mind goes berserk, I start punching him. The problem is not with the hand. The problem is here. That's where the cure has to be. So all the problems started with the top, and then it percolates down. And it has to be cured there.
Well, my name is Bipender Jindal from USA. I have listened to Professor quite a bit. I just want to share two things.
Sir, please ask a question.
Yeah, question
One
है
question.
कि when बिना मरे स्वर्ग नहीं मिलता है, we have to take the responsibility to act. Rather than saying we will wait for 10 years, we can act now. For example, the company I work for, it is a 97-year-old engineering consulting firm. Once we became the CEO and it became employee-owned, we have Diwali dinners rather than Christmas dinners. So action starts from the top, and we have to take the action. So the question is, how much takeaway we have from this today? All of us can take action in our own way. That's it.
Can I answer that?
There was no question.
I think there was.
नहीं अभी रहने दीजिए उसको.
10 seconds.
Okay.
I compliment you, sir. I compliment you, and you're absolutely right when you say we have to act. But please remember that you have acted. You acted to select a government that promised it will act for you, and it hasn't.
This is a question for Professor Anand Ranganathan. I'm Anup Kumar. Hello. The question is, what is the role of Indian judiciary in creating false narratives?
With friends like him, who needs enemies? There already is a criminal contempt of court against me. No, but the fact of the matter is, I would say the role of judiciary, it is criminally culpable. Criminally culpable. In fact, 3 days ago, I said something that was beeped out by Times Now because they didn't want to get into trouble. And then many people immediately started asking me, what did you say that was beeped out? And I said, Navika, this is a banana republic. In any civilized country, the Chief Justice of India would have imprisoned the chief ministers who were responsible for stubble burning. And in any civilized country, the President of India would have impeached and imprisoned the Chief Justice of India. So that part was beeped out. But the fact of the matter is, when you see the Hindu genocide that happened in Kashmir in 1990, and the Chief Justice and the Supreme Court bench saying that too much time has elapsed, we are not going to open the cases of criminality, of murder, rape, pillaging against Kashmiri Hindus. Too much time has elapsed. And 6 months after he said this, the same Supreme Court opened an SIT investigation in 1984 riots against Sikhs, which happened 7 years before. Is that not criminal culpability? So, but I warn you, if I'm in jail, please send me Mysore Pak from.
Of course, I will.
Hello. So, okay, this is the last question.
Yes,
Please
yes.
go ahead.
So, मेरा नाम दीपेंद्र, I'm from गोधार्मिक भारत. मेरा प्रश्न सुरेश जी से है. From the information which has been provided by Professor Anand, जैसे आपने मेंशन किया था आरएसएस के जो हमारे अनसंग हीरोज हैं, उनमें से कुछ नाम मैंने पढ़े हैं बिकॉज आई एम द मास्टर्स इन हिस्ट्री. ओके, ये प्रश्न मेरा ये है कि जो हमारे जो अनसंग हीरो हैं, जिस तरीके से हमारे इंडियन फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल का जो महिमा मंडन किया गया हमारे कुछ गिने चुने लोगों का, उसको हम अगर हमारी एजुकेशन सिस्टम में से धीरे धीरे ग्रेजुअली अगर एलिमिनेट करना है, निकालना है, जो रियल में ट्रुथ है, जो नैरेटिव्स पहले हमने डाले उसको हटा के ट्रुथ में लाना है, तो उसके लिए कितना समय आपको लगता है कि लगेगा, और ये जो प्रेजेंट हमारी रिजीम है इसके लिए कुछ काम कर रही है या नहीं? सोनी जी
प्लीज.
अनसियन हीरोज़ की जो बात है वो केवल आरएसएस का नहीं है, देश के अंदर बहुत लोग थे, और ये 75 ईयर्स के समय में वो थाउजेंड्स एंड थाउजेंड्स ऐसे अनसियन जो हीरोज़ हैं उनके संदर्भ में उनके जीवन चरित्र इस पूरे देश के अंदर अनेकों गांवों के अंदर अनेकों ऐसे लोगों का चिन्हित करना, उनके स्मारक बनना, तो उसकी एक प्रोसेस स्टार्ट पूरे देश के अंदर हुई है. तो ये कंटिन्यूअस प्रोसेस है.
ठीक है. ओके, आई थिंक वी आर डन विद क्वेश्चन एंड आवर सेशन.
But how we can use technology as a weapon to erode all these false narratives and terminologies. Like Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, Guru Ramdas Swami said, देव मस्तकी धरावा अवघा हल्ल कल्लोळ करावा, मुलुख बुडवावा अथवा बुडवावा धर्म संस्थापनेसाठी. So now as a using technology as a tool, how we can erode these false narratives? Kindly guide us.
हम आगे इस पर और चर्चा करेंगे. I just want to close this session with,
okay sir.
I just want to close
Thank
this
you
session.
Nachiketa ji. Thank you very much.
I just want to close this session with
yes,
one.
Please close it.
हाँ ठीक है. Session. ठीक है. Because we are run out of time.
Thanks for
you very
great
much.
Anand.
And we'll continue this discussion.